Welcome to the Horses Advocate podcast. This is Doc T. I am back from a long hiatus, and I have a podcast already scheduled to go out, but I thought I'd throw this one in first. The next podcast will explain where I've been and why. But I thought I would start you off with a reading, believe it or not, of a blog that I posted March 5th, 2020. And I just updated today, April 17th. The title is called Get Your Brain Right, Get Your Horse Right. And I'm just going to read it to you because a lot of people don't have time to dig in and find my blogs. But this really is the essence of what I'm trying to do here at the Horses Advocate. So here we go. The Wall Street Journal often has some excellent articles. For example, this weekend's issue, February 22nd, 2020, had an article on bias in the media, parentheses, Detecting Fake News Takes Time by Alison Gopnik, close parentheses. It had a different point of view that I had not thought of. Let me quote. David Rand of MIT and Gordon Pennycook of the University of Regina have suggested that, quote, cognitive laziness, unquote, may be a bigger problem than bias. It's not that people can't tell or don't care whether a story is true. It's just that they don't put in the effort to find out, close quote. My zoology professor predicted this in 1971 and told our class, quote, man is basically lazy, close quote. Back then, quote, man was shorter for human. So ladies, you're not off the hook. Most people are lazy, regurgitating what they have memorized without putting effort into thinking. But it's worse because most people don't understand their words, so they seek validation or advice from others who are also regurgitating what they don't understand. If two or more people say it's true, it must be. Dr. Daniel Amen, the well-known psychologist with hundreds of books, articles, and TV shows, was asked by Tom Bilyeu on his February 27th, 2020 podcast, quote, what is the number one thing society does that is eroding health span right now? Close quote. His answer included being, quote, oblivious, close quote, in that, quote, we are not reading food labels, close quote, and, quote, that we are just not thinking about our brains and our bodies. Get your brain right, and your body will be there, close quote. By extension, get your brain right, get your horse right. Whack-a-mole medicine. I was cognitively lazy for many years. It's easier not to think, but to trust what you have learned from teachers and mentors, or to believe in the experts around you. That is how my school, parentheses, and all medical schools, close parentheses, taught me. See this disease? Do this. See that disease? Do that. It was like whack-a-mole game where a mole would pop up out of the ground and you would try to hit it on the head with a hammer before it ducked back down. I'm sure there's a YouTube video of the game. I must also credit this expression to David Sinclair, PhD, from his book, Lifespan. Doctors depend on people trusting them blindly. So do auto mechanics. But now thinking is fun, especially with what we now know. Putting together the pieces and getting answers covering many medical issues is exciting. It's like doing one thing that prevents all the moles from popping their heads out. What if doing one thing solved equine metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and Cushing's disease, making your horse more comfortable and sound? You're correct. Many vets would be looking for another way to make an income. I've stuck my neck out in these podcasts, blogs, nutrition and dentistry courses, topic posts, and my private Facebook page, The Horse's Advocate. There are a lot of thinking people who have commented or have led discussions in the group, and I am grateful for them. Many ask thought-provoking questions that lead everyone to a deeper understanding of a topic. However, I often look at or listen to many words, written or spoken, by people who subscribe to cognitive laziness. There's no evidence of any effort on their part to read the material and dig for answers. Instead, the opposite occurs. They conclude from old misunderstandings held onto by horse owners and professionals. Unfortunately, many of my colleagues are usually too busy to question what they learned in school, so they perpetuate the whack-a-mole approach to their practice. The filter of agendas. Misunderstanding may be an understatement. Propaganda, false advertising, and calculated misdirection may be more accurate. The American Association of Equine Practitioners, the AAEP, is the world's largest association of horse veterinarians. The most considerable financial support of the AAEP comes from feed companies, pharmaceutical companies, and nutritional supplement companies. Magazines proclaiming their authority about horses stuff themselves with advertisements from the same supporters of the AAEP. The agenda-driven dissemination of quality information for horse owners is so prevalent that I can't be put on a podcast or asked for a magazine interview, as this would upset the advertisers. So instead, I write here and on my social media. I gain nothing from this other than receiving remarkable acknowledgments from people who have decided to dig in, learn, and apply what they have learned to their horses. The results have been spectacular in many cases. I'm not selling anything except for a membership and courses filled with information to help pay the expenses. My nights at home and in hotels are filled with learning and conveying what I have learned to you for the benefit of your horses. If you don't believe in my words and thoughts, move on. Or question me. Both are okay. Epidemics. I'm challenging everything taught because from 50 years, since 1973, of working with horses, I see epidemics of illness and unsoundness in every state I visit in this country. I see things that were not in the textbooks when I went to vet school. EOTRH, equine odontoclastic tooth resorption hypercementosis, fractured cheek teeth, dropped fetlocks DSLD, white line disease, kissing spine, head shaking syndrome, and anhidrosis. Only one paragraph was on that. I'm also seeing epidemics of metabolic syndrome, EMS, insulin resistance, IR, Cushing's disease, PPID, and other names, suspensory ligament injury, and an increase in sudden sleep disorder, misnamed narcolepsy. Why? Since my vet school training, the rise in health issues in horses has driven me to keep learning about the things unheard of even a few years ago. The latest information is that animals can convert glucose, starch, into fructose. When ripe, fruit converts glucose into much sweeter fructose, increasing the chance of being eaten and spreading the seeds of the fruit. We also were taught that the purpose of fructose is to add body fat for the upcoming winter. But now they find out humans and mice are reacting to the high glucose diets. In horses, continuous feeding of hay and grain. By creating an enzyme that converts glucose into fructose, aldose reductase. This increase in fructose from glucose in humans and mice leads to fatty liver disease, increased triglycerides in the blood, increased body fat, increased blood sugar, and an increased appetite through leptin suppression. It also causes the mitochondrial exhaustion I've discussed in the past, increased uric acid with inflammation of the kidneys, and a subsequent rise in blood pressure. Believe it or not, increasing salt intake in a dehydrated state in humans and mice will also convert glucose into fructose. For example, eating salted fried potatoes, starch plus salt, and washing them down with cola is a recipe for early death from human metabolic syndrome and heart disease. No one has tested this relationship between glucose, fructose, and uric acid in horses. Still, horses on a grain diet with abundant starch-filled hay or grass have metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and other diseases I've associated with a chronic protein deficiency secondary to mitochondrial dysfunction. Laminated horses turned out on spring pasture with rising fructose levels are prone to another, often fatal, bout of laminitis. Add to this, some add salt to the feed with the possibility of feeding this high salt diet to dehydrated horses. So could the mystery of laminitis be explained by increasing uric acid, causing inflammation in some way to the lamina of the hooves? This past year, the World Health Organization, WHO, listed aging as a disease for the first time. And the number one reason for aging and brain disease in all animals tested is mitochondrial dysfunction, exhaustion, and cellular death. Aging seems to bring on a lot of conditions in all species, including horses. And what we feed them is at the root of almost every disease we see in horses. Preventing these from happening is in the best interest of our horses, but not in the best interest of veterinarians, feed dealers, and all others in the feed chain. No wonder veterinarians oppose the no-grain diet and the feeding of protein. No wonder they draw more blood to confirm their diagnosis and treatment plan rather than to monitor for improved health. There is no place for cognitive laziness in advocating for our horses. It is up to all of us who are investing our time into learning to pass what we have learned on to others. By teaching, we solidify what we know. Then we need to dig in and re-challenge ourselves by looking for the results we want. And if we still need to get them, ask better questions. I plan to do that for the next 50 years with horses. That's the end of this blog that I've read to you. I've also had a blog called But Why Mommy? And the But Why Mommy game is, but, the child asks mommy, but why? And mommy keeps giving answers. And finally, after a while, the mother says to the child, I don't know, go ask your father. And the father to me is my veterinary profession. And so I ask them these questions. I'm still not getting the answers. I see a lot of veterinarians and veterinary organizations downplay what we are seeing anecdotally because they say there's no randomized controlled studies, yet there is no money for randomized controlled studies. And in addition, they do start to talk about things that can be seen as profit centers. Dentistry is a great example of this. But from what I see in the past 50 years with horses, and 40 years floating teeth, and 39 years as a veterinarian, I see too many things occurring in horses that didn't exist back then. And because I have a great time machine, I can go back. My brain is sharp. I can see things that were there in 1973, in 1983, and I know what's in the textbooks because I was there. I passed my exams. I became a graduate in veterinary medicine, just like all the other veterinarians. But I'm seeing this increase frequency of illnesses or these new illnesses coming out, and we have to do something about it. And that's the purpose of the Horse's Advocate, is just to dig in and discuss things. And if you want to discuss them, leave your comments here. Better yet, become a member of the Horse's Advocate and leave your questions there. Attend my live Ask Me Anythings every other Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, where you can ask the questions, or you can send in questions that I'll try to answer live for you that you can listen to the replay if you're someplace where the time is not convenient for you. But it's there, and it's time that we started doing the best we can with our limited resources to help horses thrive in a human world. And that's the purpose of the Horse's Advocate. And I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you've joined me, that you're listening to this podcast. And I hope that you subscribe. That's the best way to show your support. Subscribe to the podcast. Ask, comment, and let's see what else. Oh, yeah, become a member of the Horse's Advocate. That will help give financial support to make sure all these podcasts continue to come out. I will be starting to read my autobiography as a separate podcast. I'll put them out one chapter at a time, and my other books that I've written about true and incredible stories of a horse vet. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So that's it for me, this short one. I'll also find some other blogs to read to you. And thank you for being here. This is Doc T out.
Hey everyone, Doc T here. Thank you for listening to my content. Would you do me a huge favor? Would you please subscribe, comment, like, thumbs up, and give a star review? However it's presented to you, I want you to do that. There's two reasons. The first, of course, is to improve this product. This way I know what you like, what you don't like, what I can improve upon, what topics you want me to cover. But more importantly, it's also going to help others find me. And by doing that, you are now engaged in this mission of helping horses thrive in a human world. By you helping, we can reach others. And that I would be so grateful for. And remember, go to thehorsesadvocate.com for updates on this information. Thehorsesadvocate.com. And again, thank you so much for being here. Doc T out.